Okay, so we are live. Um, all right, let's dive right in. So we're going to talk a little bit about DOM manipulation today. So Michael did some research on it, and today I'm going to do the presenting. But we're just going to kind of facilitate a discussion, get any questions out there. I'm first going to show an example from my own Code Topics assignment that I've done, and then we'll kind of go through and show some source code and make sure that we get a good understanding by the end, or at least feel comfortable with it. Okay, so I'm going to dive into example 6 here. So this example has to do with local storage. So the part we're going to focus on is DOM manipulation, but this will also give us an exposure to local storage. Browser, it's got its own storage. So you can store key value pairs, which you can then retrieve later. So this information is stored in your browser even when you close it or when you open it back up again. So it's kind of, I did a shopping cart example because that's a common example that you'll see, is that a lot of times shopping carts will store your information so that when you come back to the same page you were at, it's got your product data so that you don't have to go back and re-enter everything, put it back in your shopping cart and check out. Kind of it's convenience for the user so that they can make more money. So let me just show you what the simple application does. So if I put in product name, I'll say sneakers, and then put in a price, I'll say it's $20 sneakers. Add to cart, and then that adds it here. So in my application, I've done two things. I've shown the JSON representation, and then I've done kind of like an application of that, which is now my shopping cart holds sneakers $19.99. So if I did another one, let's say I bought a tie, and that tie costs $5. I've got sneakers, which costs $19.99, and the tie, which costs $5, and that is updated here as well. So there's two parts to my code. This one is going to be local storage here. So this is my, make this a little bit larger. I just created a couple of inputs and then gave them IDs. So product name, product price. And then I attached an on-click event to my button. So Michael, are you familiar with any kind of events that you can attach?
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah, it basically calls a function.
Yeah, so just call the function. So I've got a local storage.js here, which I'll pull up. I'll do that one, and then okay, so here's the HTML file I was in, and we'll notice here that it says add to cart. So if anybody clicks on the button, it will add the product to the cart. And so I've got my add to cart function here. So I'm going to grab a couple elements here. My output element is where I'm storing my JSON snippet. So this is I want to grab so that I can grab the values from local storage and then store the output to the page. And you can see that I do that right here, right there at the bottom. So that's what the output is. Then I get my key value pair. So I've got my product name and product price. So those are the two inputs. This is the first input on the page, and this is the second one. So I'm grabbing the value of each. And then what I do is I call this local storage object. So this local storage object is just given to you. You don't have to initiate it in any way. It's just there to use. All you need to do is just type local storage camel case like this, and then you can use .set item or .get item, and I'll show that there's reference on that. So JavaScript local storage. So you see I just use the same thing here. So you don't have to initialize it or anything. It's just local storage.set item. Or you see that you can remove an item by its key. Or you can read on. There's quite a bit of other things that you can do to store things in the browser. You'll also notice that there's something called session storage. So a session is named session aptly because it's correlates with your current session in the browser. So this will store data for as long as you've got the tab open. So once you close out of your browser and then come back to that same page, the data will be deleted. But this allows you to store things as people interact with the app and then delete it once they're done with it. Local storage.
Did you use that in your store here?
I didn't. No, the only one that I used in the store here is local storage. So I just use that one, which kind of persists as you open and close the application. So let's give it a test and make sure that I'm not lying to you, because that's always a risk. I don't intend to, but it's a thing that could happen. So I closed out of those windows, come back in, and you see that it's got the same data. So even though I closed out of the page, came back to it, it's still got the local storage stored in the browser.
I see.
So
how come you lost the JSON?
So I think that just has to do with the way that I'm generating it. I output the JSON whenever you add to cart.
Oh, I see. So you have to have
so if I wanted to correct that, what I would do is I would just have it output whenever the page loads. But another day, another time, I guess, or not. All right, so let's see. So I was right here. So the first thing I do is I set an item, my key value pair. The key is going to be the product name and the value is going to be the price. I then pass in my local storage object to a function I created called populate shopping cart. And then I handle it there. And then after that, I just JSON does stringify. It just gives you a string representation of your JSON object. So that's why I'm able to print here at the bottom the code. So something, this is what JSON stringify gave me here.
Interesting, it alphabetizes it, huh?
Yeah, that's kind of nice, actually.
You didn't even do that on purpose?
No, huh? Yeah, JSON just kind of does that for you. You'll also notice that if you were to console.log the object in your, and then pull it up in your browser, so inspect element like this, and then printed it here, it would also alphabetize it for you as well. So
JSON is doing that, huh?
Yeah, that's not something I do manually.
That's interesting. I don't understand why. I can understand why it does it at the bottom, but why does it do it at the top?
Oh, up here?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. That'd be something to look into. That might just be the way that whenever you add a property to an object, it may just automatically go in an alphabetized order. I don't know for sure, but
unless it's actually, maybe it's actually using the JSON output to populate the table.
And it is, you're right. So if I go back here, it was very astute. Okay, so I've attached an ID to my table body, and I call that shopping cart data. So I've passed in my local storage object to this populate shopping cart. So now I've got this object here. The first thing I want to do is make sure that I set the inner HTML of the table body. I want to reset it every time. The reason for this is that if I don't reset this, it will continue to append everything in the JSON object to the table. So instead of showing sneakers something tie, if I added sneakers first, it would show this, and then it would show sneakers again, and then something. Does that make sense? So it just would build on each other and append it to the table. But since I don't want that, I want it to show just all of the unique values, I have to reset what's in the table body. So here, what I do is I go through each property in the object. So you remember this, we talked about the iterating over an object syntax here.
All right.
And then this is something new to me. I've never actually used this before, but you can create an element in JavaScript. So this creates dynamically a table row HTML element. I'm storing it in just an aptly named tr variable. I've got my TD, both of those. Then what I do is I'm appending the text values to my TD elements. And this is just the syntax to do that. So since I want to create a text node, that's the syntax for that, and a text node here. So let me go back, because the syntax can be a little bit like, what are you doing there? So if you inspect here, you'll notice that I have my tr element. So there's my tr element. And then TD. So these HTML elements didn't exist before I ran that function. But I created them dynamically, and then I append the tr to my table body, and then I append my TD tags to my tr value to structure it just how I want it. And I do that for each key value pair in the JSON object.
Wow.
So it's kind of neat. You also see this done a lot if you use a framework called jQuery. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So jQuery is just, you'll notice there's a lot of things in JavaScript that we'll do in this class that are a little bit verbose, but in jQuery, it just shortens the amount of code that you need to write to do certain things. It makes things more convenient for you. It also, jQuery will allow you to retrieve things by their CSS selector. So in this case, we have to say document.getElement by ID, but in jQuery, you would just use the special syntax with a CSS selector, and it shortens things. So the reason I make that connection is just so you know, a lot of these things that we do here in vanilla JavaScript, you may not see this syntax very much, because in industry nowadays, there's a lot of frameworks out there that people use to make this stuff more convenient. But I see the value in learning the vanilla JavaScript way to do it. So you'll see that we append the TD to the TR. Do the same here, both of our TD values, and then we append the table row to our table body for each key value pair. And that's the syntax to do that. That's how it's done.
Wow. That's, in my mind, that's pretty sophisticated stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'd say the most sophisticated part of it is the syntax. So the syntax makes it seem a little bit more complex than it really is. But what I would do is, as you look at this example, just go through it like you're reading a novel with a bunch of big words you don't understand. So as you read it, you'll say, okay, I understand the variable tbody, but I don't understand what getElement by ID does. So then you can just Google getElement by ID JavaScript W3 schools and look up kind of what behind the scenes each of these are doing. And then, I mean, that's kind of the way I've done it over the years, is just kind of one step at a time, and just making sure I don't brush over the stuff I don't understand, but making sure that I go through each line and do that. The good news for you, for the rest of the class, is that you've got this working example, and whoever else watching this video wants to use this code as well, to where you can look at it and say, all right, so I know this code works, I see it in action, why does it work? And then you can go from that stance. So
yeah, no, it's a great learning tool.
Yeah, it can be helpful that way. I know for myself, if I'm approaching a new language or anything like that, I kind of need to see some examples first so that I can see why you would use it.
Oh yeah, I love examples.
And then That makes more sense that way. Yeah,
I live by examples, and then I just
yeah.
try to make something out of them.
In fact, I thought that some of the earlier programming classes at BYU Idaho were a little bit challenging for me as I first went through them, because they would introduce little concepts and then ask you to do something or build something with it. But having never done anything with it, I was overwhelmed, But once you get some examples and you get some context, you're like, okay, I think I can piece some things together. So
yeah, I know. Of course, being a WDD major, we don't get into half of the site and half of the computer science stuff that other programmers do.
Yeah, I had an interesting road to where I started taking computer science classes, and then switched to CIT, took some CIT classes, and then took some computer science classes down at BYU. So it was a long way to do it, but it helped give me some broader context.
Yeah, I know. I keep wondering what I'm missing. I see all these other classes that are, I guess for programmers, as opposed to web builders.
Yeah, and the truth is, as you, I don't know what your plans are after school, but I know that as I work in my job, it helps to be able to apply this stuff every day, because there's tons of smart people that are willing to help out and teach and do things like that. So
yeah, it's great when you're surrounded. You can ask questions and get answers.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I'm more than happy to answer any questions as you go through this stuff, or give more examples, or whatever you need. And also be reassured that I've been doing this stuff for a while now, so you shouldn't feel like you need to be on this level, as you go through it.
I know my limitations, and I don't mind them.
Yeah. So I remember seeing this stuff for the first time and having like a panic attack, because I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But
well, thanks for sharing it. I look forward to seeing what you built there on your site.
Yes, I'll post this along with the video. Any other questions about this example that I've shown here?
No, that's pretty awesome.
I won't show the code for this next example, but let me go through one more just to show you. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. So here, so here's one. So I'm using, and you'll look, I tried to organize it well enough to where each example does multiple things, but you'll see here there's like DOM manipulation on example 6 and example 8. So you can kind of you can go through and say, oh, okay, I want an example of CSS3 animations. Okay, here's an example here. Then let's do the code. But here I'm doing a button, which when I click it, calls a function, just like the other one on click. So then I manipulate the DOM. So what DOM manipulation means, so DOM stands for Document Object Model. So the original purpose of HTML was to create a way to output documents on the web. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Mm-hmm. So that's why you see P tags, which stand for paragraphs. The original intent was, okay, we've got data that we want to display on the web. How can we format that? So DOM stands for the model that's based off of, Document Object Model. So as you Google it, you'll find out more about it. But when the instructor talks about DOM manipulation, that means that we're taking HTML elements and changing them using JavaScript without having to reload the page.
All right, so in this kit, today.
Okay, awesome. So here, if I click this button, what I'm doing is I'm applying a class to the site. So you'll see what happens. So when I hit that button, I change the styles on the site. And then if I click this button, apply an animation like that. So this is another good example of DOM manipulation that you can look through.
Okay.
So maybe for Friday, what we can do is do some more research, and then you're welcome to look through this code, and then just come ready with any questions that you have. That might be the best way to approach it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, if I can spend some time with your code and then see how things work, and then maybe I can talk intelligently about it.
Yeah, because it's nice to be able to, I mean, I can throw all this stuff at you and then ask if you have any questions, but it takes time to process stuff. So that'll give you time to
Gee, you threw
be more
everything
comfortable with
together.
it.
You threw everything together pretty quickly there.
Yeah, I've got like a ton of time constraints, so I'm trying to work ahead as much as possible. So that's a result of that. But
Yeah, you're looking good for the next 5 weeks.
yeah, hopefully this will help out. All right, well, I'll
All
end
right.
the video there, and then I will immediately post this YouTube link as well as my my link to my site as well as my GitHub repo. So,
Okay. Thanks, Daniel.
all right, thanks, Michael.
All right.